Well, hello everyone, and welcome to Old Folks and What We Know. And I'll be your host today, and this is going to be my second video I put up on this new channel. So I hope you're going to enjoy the channel, and I hope you will interact with me and give me some comments, feedback. I hope that you having a great week, but I want to hear what you want to hear about and all that. I'm 71-year-old retired person, but I'm still very much active and all. So I'm gonna give you. I've got a book, and I'm not gonna hide it. I got a book that I write things down because sometimes I forget wandering off. Now I can wander off on the subject of music for days at a time, but these are things that I've learned and know just from living life. And trust me, if you're a young person, these are things that really gonna be important in your life. Not tomorrow or not next week, but today. And we need to focus on today, and that's what we're gonna be talking about a little bit, is that things, and I'm referring to my book, but the things I see and know right now, the cost of living is so far out of sight that it's unreal. Everything from when I started out growing up, I was born in 1954. When I turned 16, I got a used 1955 Ford car, but my daddy had completely restored it. I'm talking about rebuilt motor, or repainted the motor, rebuilt it, because he owned a garage, and we had several people that worked with us back then, but he restored it, repainted it, took it next door. There was an upholstery shop, brand new seat covers, headliners, sun visor covers, the whole 9 yards, and it had a funny thing, it had a radio in it that was AM only. It was a round dial. Matter of fact, I've got 3 of 1955 Ford radios up in the barn today because I used to save them out of our junkyard. I'd take parts off of 55 Fords and all. I got chrome that goes around them and all that, but I still got that to this day. But the cost of living, that's what I want to talk about. 1970s. And I just looked this up on Google so I wouldn't tell you wrong, but back in 1970s, a brand new Ford F-150 truck, plain one you could get for $2,500 or $2,000. Brand new. Now, I know what you're thinking. Well, you didn't make much money back then. That's true. But back then, that was good money, $2,500, but it didn't take you that long to pay it off. And, okay, if you wanted a top-of-the-line Ford truck with all the bells and whistles on it, back then it was going to cost you whopping $3,000 to $3,100. Why? Now, let's fast forward to right now. A brand new Ford F-150. And I just looked them up. A basic stripped down model with nothing on it is $30,000. Folks, we didn't pay close to that much for our home. And we owned our own home. My dad, I was lucky. I got a brother that's younger than me. But a new home today, I mean, back then 30. Today, the same house we lived in today is valued at $95,000. Now, that's how much things have changed from the 70s to 2025. Here it is in December. Fixing to be 2026. So, there you have it. In the 70s, I'm looking at my book, and I don't want to tell you wrong. In the 70s, you could buy a dozen eggs. Listen to this. 60 cents. 60 cents. Now, here it is, in December, eggs cost anywhere from $3 a dozen to $5, and that depends on where you live. I live in a small town here in South Georgia, and our eggs about $2.99 a dozen. So, there you have it. In 1970, a house, listen to this, a brand new house, stick built, not a mobile home, $27,000. And I'm thinking the house we lived in and growed up in, which was at the edge of town, we was in the county. Now it's in the city, because the city is took over. That's going to be a whole nother subject with these cities taking over the county. It's for one thing and one thing only, and that's money, money, money. And that's the problem with the world today is money. But $27,000 now, that same house, well, I just told you, is $95,000. That's for a basic house. Then you got houses for $200,000. And back then, gas, listen to this, I wrote it down, 88 cents a gallon, and I have seen it low as when they had what they called a gas war down here, and I worked when I was 15 at Texaco gas station. I told you about a little bit about that in the first video, about where I drove the semi-trucks at the age of 15, where grown men that worked there couldn't drive them, because I raised up in a garage, working family. All my daddy's brothers were geniuses. They all growed up on the farm. They had to work on their own tractors. But anyway, gas went down to 39 cents a gallon one time, and I remember 10 cents a gallon when I was little and all. But anyway, and the thing is, back in them days, you didn't have homeless people rambling around and all that. Everybody had a job of some kind. If they didn't eat. And I know, because we had people that was very, very poor and unfortunate that was traveling from up north or maybe Nashville, Tennessee, going to Florida. We lived right here just a few miles off of I-75 in our town. And our garage was on Highway 41, which used to be the main go-to to go to Florida. And then 75 was built. But we still got a lot of business off of 75. But anyway, we had people come in there and they'd have car problems and they didn't have no money and they would have to give us other things. I know one man, and this actually happened, he left a couple of nice, I'm talking about high-grade Parker shotguns with us in a case. He said, I'm going to Florida for a job in the orange orchard. And he said, I'm from up in Tennessee. And he said, I might be down there a year, I might be down there 5 years. But he said, would you hold these guns? And he owed us $200, I think it was, to rebuild his motor and get him back on the road. It took us 2 days. We had a little old camper thing out back of the shop. Him and his family stayed in it overnight. And we told the police department to go by and check on him every once in a while. If they needed anything, take it to him and we'd pay for it. And we did. We bought their meals. Well, he got left it. Did you know that it was 40 years later? 40 years. I wouldn't remember it. My dad was standing behind the counter and that man pulled up in something like a new Lincoln or a Cadillac. He got out, and his wife got out. They walked in, and he looked, and my dad didn't remember him, didn't recognize him, because we had 40 years had passed. But he stuck out his hand and said, I'm looking for Mr. Jones. And my dad said, well, I'll be darned. He said, and he called the guy's name, whatever it was. He said, you're the guy that broke down and we rebuilt the motor and we got your ticket over here for $200. And my dad said a few weeks ago or months or years, and the guy laughed and said, Mr. Jones, it's been 40 years. And he said, I know you ain't got my guns. And he said, I don't expect you to have them, but he said, I want to pay my bill off and pay you some interest anyway. He said, I went down to Florida and I worked in the orange grove. He said, I told you I'd be back in a year or two. And he said, well, I got to working so hard down there that he said I actually ended up owning the orange grove. And he said, now I own one of the biggest orange juice producing companies in Florida. And he said, and we're on our way to Nashville. And he said, when we got to your city limit sign, he said, I remembered. And he said, I thought you would be gone. I didn't expect nothing to be here, but I pulled off at the interstate and come down, and there it was, the shop. He said, it didn't change a bit. Well, that guy, my dad said, well, guess what? I got your guns in your case in the office with a tag on them with your name. He went and pulled them out. And Lord and behold, that man was so excited. And he gave my dad a couple of $1,000 and told my dad, my dad kept saying, no, it's just $200. And he said, no, Mr. Jones, he's interest. He said, besides that, I went down there because of you and become successful in life. He said, I can have anything I want now. So, there you go. You never know about life's history. All right, we rode up in a time, and this is the big one. No internet, no cell phones. And for socializing, us kids got on our bicycle and rode down to the next kid's house, might be 2 houses down or a block away, knocked on the door or sat out in the backyard and hollered, hey Jim, hey Craig, hey Keith, Gary, Jeff, whoever, to come out. Sometimes their mama would come out and say, hey, they got to get through with their homework first. I said, well, tell them to come by. And we'd leave because we know that might be an hour or two. We'd go home or go somewhere else. But we could go ride a bicycle down the block and we could look. And there'd be 3 or 4 bikes stacked up on the ground. We knew that's where the socializing was, in their backyard, front yard. Now, we didn't go in folks' houses much back then. Kids did and adults did and all that. But we had to rely, when I started driving a semi-truck, and I'm going to tell you a story about it, we didn't even have a cell phone. I went all over the United States, out of Texas, Kansas, Missouri, Maine, New York, Connecticut, Missouri, Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, and come back to Georgia. Go to Miami, Florida, Key West, Florida, make a delivery. Come back to Georgia. We get up to Maine and we wanted to load. We had to either use the phone at the place we was unloading from, which most time, 99% had a payphone. We had to drop a dime in it. Yes, sir. You drop a dime in it and we dial the 800 number to our dispatcher. They tell us, no, I don't have a load, or yes, we got a load. If they said, no, I don't have a load, they'd say, you want to wait or you want to start heading home? I'd say, well, how about I'm up here in Maine. I said, when I get close to New York, I'll call you before I get into the city to see if there's something in this area. And we'd do that, and then I'd call from New York or up there north of it, and I'd say, look, I'm going to go down to Baltimore, and I'd go down to Baltimore on 95. And we'd finally find us a load, Baltimore to Port Harbor and all that. We was always lucky to haul something from there back to Georgia. We might have to haul it to Atlanta, or Valdosta, or Bainbridge, or Columbus. We had a lot of stuff that went to Columbus for the military. But anyway, payphones we had to depend on. If it wasn't for them, we would have been in the dark. Now, you can't even find a payphone around here, folks. Not nowhere. All right, let me tell you something else. Back them days, and I'm looking at my notes, and I don't mind telling you, we never even heard of something called a scam. Now, everybody's talking about scammers now, and I have a good time with them. I need to make a video of me answering a scammer's call on the telephone one day. You'd get a kick out of it. I just keep playing them on if I ain't got nothing to do. Nothing better to do, you know. But I do write music, and I study music, and music's my passion now. Always was. I just didn't pursue it as hard. Now I do. And now I'm under a contract to write music for some people. And I'll tell you about that later. And they pay me. That's the best part, being retired and getting paid for doing that. TV shows. Well, back in them days, we had the greatest TV shows in the world. When I went to my grandma's, and that was another lucky part about living, I get to stay during the summer with my grandma and granddaddy all summer long. Go grocery shopping with them, whatever they did. But I loved old folks back then when I was young, because I would always say, Grandpa, tell me something about the old days. Tell me about growing up. He'd tell me about plowing mules and drawing water from the well, taking baths out in a bathtub outside, building a fire in a wood heater to cook. Grandma would tell me about stuff that she did, and most things that both of them said they hated was the outhouse. The best day of their whole life was when they got a indoor plumbing with a real toilet, a real bathtub inside, and hot water. And if you growing up just watching this probably ain't never had to do without none of that. But also the news back then, when it come on, you can sit down and watch the news. They tell you, well, so-and-so had a wreck or somebody got killed over here. But the thing is, they would not tell you their opinion or who, politics. That was something that wasn't ever on TV. It was something everybody stayed far away. Everybody went to vote. Nobody asked another person who you voting for that I ever heard of. Nobody ever got mad. Nobody fussed about it. It was just a necessary thing. We'd go vote for our local county and city commissioners. And all, we don't have a mayor, we have a city manager, and the commissioners appoint him. And we vote for the sheriff, local sheriff. And I've seen some of our local sheriff's race get heated up where they actually exchanged gunfire one time, and we can do a show about that. But TV shows, when I went to my grandma's house, there was a certain day, and I forgot. I know Walt Disney come on Sunday night, and you'd have to go to church and run home because it come on about 8:30 or 9. Boy, you would just get sitting down after church. And nobody wanted the preacher to be long-winded that Sunday night because Walt Disney was coming on and they had decent shows. But the number one show, I remember my grandma watching, and we'd even get to the point we had popcorn and sweet tea with it to watch the movie. That was a luxury back then, popcorn. But Gunsmoke, woo, she has never missed an episode of Gunsmoke, I promise you. And then at home growing up, we watched Andy Griffin and Bonanza and, of course, Gunsmoke and stuff like that. But the news was real news, and they didn't have an opinion. And if they showed something dirty or ugly or something like that on TV, the FCC would shut them down, fine them. And most time, if a newsman got in front of a camera and said an ugly word or something, you didn't see him no more. They didn't announce him being fired. He was just gone, like he disappeared overnight and all. So, all right, so people also helped each other. My neighbors helped us. We helped our neighbors. Excuse me. And if we was riding down the road and saw somebody broke down, we didn't think nothing about pulling over and say, can I help you? Maybe it was a little old lady with a flat tire. You got out and changed your tire. That was respectful. You was expected to do that. And stuff like that. Back in them days, we were safe. We never, and I don't do it today, I should, but we never locked our cars or trucks back in them days. Fact is, I remember we never even took the keys out of the car and truck. That's how much trust. We never had them stolen, never even heard of nobody's car getting stolen. We never locked our house. I remember we'd go on vacation, call the neighbor, and say, hey, we're going down to Florida for the weekend. We'd go, our vacations was usually Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and then come home Sunday night. We'd call them up, man, do you mind feeding Spot or Heidi or Peanut, our dog? Do you mind looking after him, make sure his water pan's full and his food's on the back porch? And usually our dog was in a fenced-in area. And we'd say, oh, the key's unlocked to the house ain't locked. If you don't mind, go in and look around the house and make sure everything's okay, because we could have left the stove on. Make sure the refrigerator door's shut or whatever. Make sure things are safe. That was the end of it. You know, I graduated high school in 1972, and a lot of my friends did, and a lot of them went to college. Well, we couldn't. I didn't want to go to college. I wasn't smart enough to go to college. I didn't make the grades. So I barely did get through graduation, but I don't have no regrets to look back, because immediately I went to vocational school to South Georgia. Let me look up and make sure I get the name right. South Georgia Technical College, they call it now, but it was South Georgia Technical Vocal school back then, and I specialized and took the class of automotive and diesel mechanics. And I stayed in the whole course for 4 or 5 years. And so I did that, and I mastered mechanics, and I specialized in fuel systems and carburetors and stuff like that. And then along come electronic ignition and fuel injection, and I had to relearn. We went back to school many times and all that. But I want to say one thing. My father, he owned a garage. My father was a very smart, very strong man, very gentle man, and children everywhere loved him because he took up time with them. But let me tell you, he could solve problems that nobody in the whole world could solve. And I'm going to give you an example of it. He solved problems for farmers on setting up brand new equipment that didn't quite plant right, the machines wasn't wrong, there was something wrong with them, and he'd go look at them, and he'd measure, and he'd say, well, we're going to have to weld some crossbars over here and here, and we're going to have to put these planters at a different number, and he said, the holes ain't matching up on your plate, so we're going to have to drill some holes. He said, bring the tractor down to the shop, and we'll get you planting tomorrow. And we did, solve that problem. The concrete company, they had weird machines. We had things that was called killer brews that had these buckets on them that take concrete up in the air so they could pour it over into a truck because they didn't have a way to pump it back then. That thing broke down all the time because it had a big old chain on it that pulled it like a planter chain. It broke all the time. We had to go weld it together all the time. We even had links on standby for them and all that. I never will forget one time, and big companies that was making steel mill, the mill here, the cotton gins. Cotton gin, my dad went down and fixed cotton gin a many times. The whole thing would be shut down. The sawmill would get shut down. He'd go fix it. And he owned the garage, and of course they would pay him to do it. Well, I'll never forget CSX Railroad or North Fort Southern, that's the one it was. It comes through town. Both of them do now. But anyway, that train broke down and cut Cordelia in half. We had a 41. We didn't have an overpass unless you went all the way out to 75. And that was like 5 miles out there and 5 miles back, so just to go around to the hospital. Anyway, that train broke down and cut the town in two, and they weren't only 2 days. The train stayed 2 days. The sheriff's department had a car on each side of it with lights going for 2 days. Finally, somebody come running in our shop from the railroad, a man in a suit and tie, and he said, I'm looking for Mr. Jones. And they said, there he is over there and working on that car bent over. And he went over there and said, Mr. Jones, I am, and I believe he said vice president of the railroad. He said, we need your help now. And he said, he said, yeah, he said, has he got something to do with that train that's blocking the road down there? He said, it's been down there for 2 days. And the man said, yes, sir, our train's down there. It run out of fuel and nobody can get it to start. And he said, we've had our best engineers look at it and work on it. It will not start. So my dad went down there, and I went with him. He told me, come on. I was 16 working there. We grabbed our records truck and our service truck with the air compressors on it and all that. We went down there, and in less than an hour probably, my dad had that train cranked up. They fueled it back up with diesel fuel before he got there because they had a truck come down. That train was out of there. From that day on, we worked on all their equipment. They paid us for that job. But all their cars and their service trucks, if it had North Fort Southern on it, you believe it was in our shop getting worked on. They'd send them all the way down from Atlanta for us to work on. That's how good they liked it. All right, so best thing I can say to you now, I'm just kind of rambling on, and that's why I want you to give me some directions, what you want to hear about. Because what I want to tell you, is there's one statement that sticks out in my life that a CPA, my CPA that has passed on, I miss him, had told me. He said, you can tell a lot about a man by his friends and the company he keeps. And he said, hanging out with, if you hang out with buzzards, you can't fly with the eagles. And I'm like, okay, so if I hang out with buzzards, I can't fly with the eagles. Can I fly by myself? He said, no, because he said, you need them eagles, because they're the ones that's going to lift you up. He said, them buzzards are going to push you down. So he said, hang out with the best people, because he said, they rub off on you. And if it's going to rub off on you, wouldn't you rather be the best people instead of the worst people? And he's right. So leave all your fears behind. All your regret, your past in the past, if you did something wrong and you messed up, forget about it, it's over. Live today in the present of now. And look forward to tomorrow. Because tomorrow is another step forward. But today is your first step to making a change to be your best. So never let go of your dreams and goals. I didn't. I wanted to be a musician that was successful all my life, and it didn't happen until I was in my 60s, and it happened accidentally in a way, but in a way, another way, I know I never give up on it, but I took other jobs and went other routes, but I'd always studied music. When I drove a semi-truck, I took a guitar with me in the truck. Acoustic guitar. I wrote songs all day long if I was sitting at a warehouse waiting. I sat there and wrote down chords, tabs for the notes, wrote out words for songs, and put them in a book. I got a book that high of songs I wrote, and I'm just now getting around to publishing them on another website that I've got. And anyway, I rambled on enough. I hope y'all are enjoying these videos, and please subscribe to the channel. That would be a big help, but also please leave a comment, a thumbs up. Let me know what you want. I'm doing this not for me, I'm doing it for you. So I need to know what you need to hear. What has stuck in your head, or what is chipping away at your life that you could change in. I've probably been there and done that, because I'm going to tell you, I've done many, many things in my life. So had my dad. He was in the Army in World War II. Stayed in Germany 4 years. And got shot a couple of times. Got shot one day, he said, in the leg. Didn't know it 3 days later. That was when they landed in Normandy. He said that day he got shot in the leg, his adrenaline was so up that there was so many bullets that he didn't know he was shot. He said that 3 days later he started burning, and he said he looked down and said, I'll be darned. But luckily it didn't hit the bone, it just went to his meat and the back of his calf and went out the other side, and went and called a medic, and they bandaged him up, and he went on with the troops. Oh, he got out. But whenever the 4 years when they was in there, they got through going to all these places in Germany that he told me about, crossing the Rhine River and Battle of the Bulge and all some of the stuff he done, and worked on tanks, talked to General Sherman personally. He was a master sergeant in the Army, first scout too. But he got on a ship going to Japan. They were nearby ready to land in Japan for an invasion when they bombed it with the atomic bombs, and the war ended, and his ship turned around and brought him back home. And then he was a farmer. They owned a farm, but things happened, and he left the farm and progressed on and owned a garage and retired there. But when he retired, he started a new job in the trucking business. So he didn't give up, and he was driving semis up until the last week he died, just about, at 80-something years old, delivering stuff for a famous race car driver. I'll tell you about that later. Okay, y'all have a great week.